Amara lived in a small, quiet town where dreams often stayed locked inside people's hearts. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other and life moved at a slow, predictable pace. But Amara was different. From the moment she could remember, her mind had been filled with big ideas and even bigger questions. She loved to imagine herself doing something extraordinary, something that would make her stand out from the crowd. Her family wasn't rich. They lived in a modest house on the edge of town, with peeling paint and creaky floors. Her father worked long hours at the factory, and her mother cleaned houses to help pay the bills. Money was tight, but love wasn't. Every evening, the family gathered around the dinner table, sharing stories about their day. Amara always listened carefully, soaking up every word, as if trying to find inspiration for her own story. One night, when Amara was 12 years old, everything changed. While her parents watched TV in the living room, she snuck into her brother Marcus's bedroom to borrow his laptop. He was older, cooler, and always seemed to know things before anyone else did. That night, Amara stumbled across a video of an opera singer performing on YouTube. At first, she didn't understand what she was hearing. The language was foreign, and the stage looked like it belonged in another world. But then the singer opened her mouth, and Amara froze. The voice was unlike anything she'd ever heard. It was powerful yet delicate, soaring high like birds in flight, then dropping low like waves crashing against rocks. Tears welled up in Amara's eyes without her realizing why. For the first time in her life, she felt connected to something bigger than herself, something beautiful. From that day forward, Amara became obsessed with opera. She spent hours watching videos online, learning about famous singers like Maria Callas and Leontine Price. She read about their lives, marveling at how they overcame challenges to share their gifts with the world. Most nights, after finishing her homework, she practiced singing softly in her room, mimicking the sounds she heard. Her voice wasn't perfect. It wobbled and cracked sometimes, but it was hers and she loved it. At school, no one understood Amara's fascination with opera. Her classmates teased her whenever she mentioned it, calling it weird or old-fashioned. Even her teachers raised eyebrows when she wrote essays about famous composers instead of sports heroes or movie stars. But Amara didn't care. Opera made her feel alive in a way nothing else did. It gave her hope that maybe, just maybe, she could create something meaningful someday. Still, there were moments when doubt crept in. One afternoon, while practicing scales in her room, she overheard her parents talking in the kitchen. "Opera?" her mother said, shaking her head. "That's not practical, Amara. What will she do with that?" Her father sighed, agreeing reluctantly. "She needs to focus on real goals," he added. Hearing those words broke Amara's heart. For the first time, she wondered if they were right. Was she wasting her time chasing a dream that might never come true? But deep down, she couldn't let go. Opera wasn't just music to her. It was freedom. And she decided then and there that no matter what anyone said, she would keep singing. Because somewhere inside her, she knew she was meant to be heard. Little did she know, her journey was only beginning. And soon, the whole world would listen. Amara's excitement about opera grew stronger every day, but she knew she needed guidance to improve. She couldn't afford private lessons, so she decided to join the school chore. It wasn't exactly opera, but it was a start. A way to practice singing in front of others, and maybe even get noticed by someone who could help her. The chore was led by Ms. Whitmore, the drama teacher, a tall woman with sharp features and an even sharper tongue. Everyone at school respected her, or at least feared her, because of her strict rules and old-fashioned views. On the first day of rehearsals, Amara walked into the music room feeling nervous but hopeful. She carried a notebook filled with lyrics she'd written down from operas she loved, along with notes on vocal techniques she'd learned online. As students gathered around, Ms. Whitmore stood at the front, arms crossed, scanning the group with narrowed eyes. When she called out names for parts, Amara raised her hand eagerly, hoping to be chosen for a solo. But when Ms. Whitmore finally looked at her, all she said was, "You're new here, aren't you?" "Yes, ma'am," Amara replied, trying to sound confident. "I really want to sing." Ms. Whitmore tilted her head slightly, studying Amara as if she were some strange creature. "Opera, is it?" she asked after hearing Amara mention her interest during introductions. Her tone was icy, almost mocking. "That's quite ambitious for someone like you." Amara froze. "Someone like me? she repeated softly, unsure what the teacher meant. Ms. Whitmore didn't answer directly. Instead, she turned to the rest of the class and announced, "Opera is a classical art form. It requires discipline, training, and, well, let's just say not every voice fits." She glanced back at Amara, her message clear. To her, Amara didn't belong, not because of her talent, but because of who she was. The comment stung more than anything Amara had ever experienced. She felt heat rising in her cheeks as whispers spread among the other students. Some giggled nervously. Others avoided eye contact altogether. For the rest of rehearsal, Amara kept her head down, too embarrassed to sing louder than a whisper. Even though she tried to focus on the music, Miss Whitmore's words echoed in her mind like a cruel chant. Asterisk, not every voice fits asterisk. That evening, Amara sat alone in her room, staring at the notebook that once brought her so much joy. Tears streamed down her face as she replayed the scene over and over again. Why did Ms. Whitmore have to say those things? Did she really believe them, or was she just trying to scare Amara away? The question swirled in her head, making it hard to breathe. But then, something inside her shifted. Through her tears, Amara remembered why she started singing in the first place. It wasn't for approval or applause. It was because opera made her feel alive. And no one, not even someone like Ms. Whitmore, could take that away from her. Determined to prove the teacher wrong, Amara vowed to work harder than ever before. If Ms. Whitmore thought she didn't belong, then Amara would show her otherwise. She spent hours practicing late into the night, perfecting each note until her throat ached. She recorded herself singing and listened back, critiquing every flaw. Slowly but surely, her confidence began to return. Still, the memory of Ms. Whitmore's words lingered like a shadow. Amara knew she couldn't erase them completely, but she refused to let them define her. Opera wasn't just a hobby, it was her dream, and dreams, she realized, weren't meant to be easy. They were meant to push you, challenge you, and make you stronger. As weeks passed, Amara continued attending tour rehearsals, keeping her head high despite Ms. Whitmore's cold stares. She sang quietly at first, afraid of drawing attention, but soon her voice grew bolder. By the end of the semester, even the other students had begun to notice. One girl whispered to her after class, "You're really good, you know." Amara smiled faintly, grateful for the compliment, but deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Someday, she promised herself, she'd stand on a stage where no one could silence her, not Ms. Whitmore, not anyone. Until then, she'd keep singing, proving to herself and the world that her voice mattered. Because sometimes, the loudest voices are the ones that refuse to stay quiet. After the chore incident, Amara felt more alone than ever. Her confidence had taken a hit, and she wasn't sure if she could keep going. Singing was supposed to make her happy, but now it felt like a reminder of everything Ms. Whitmore had said. For days, Amara avoided practicing, too afraid that her voice would sound as unworthy as the teacher claimed. She spent most evenings lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she should give up. One afternoon, Marcus came home from work earlier than usual. He noticed Amara sitting quietly in the living room, her notebook closed on her lap. "What's wrong?" he asked, plopping down beside her. At first, Amara tried to brush him off, saying she was just tired. But Marcus knew better. He'd seen her light dim before, and he wasn't about to let it happen again. "Come on, sis," he said gently. "Talk to me." With a heavy sigh, Amara told him everything. How Ms. Whitmore dismissed her dreams, how the other students laughed, and how she felt like nothing she did would ever be enough. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face. Marcus pulled her into a hug, letting her cry until she calmed down. When she finally looked up, Marcus smiled at her. "You know what I think?" he asked. Before she could answer, he continued, "I think Ms. Whitmore is scared." Amara blinked. "Scared? Of what?" "Of you," Marcus said firmly. "She's scared because you're different, because you have something special that she doesn't understand. People like her hate seeing someone break the rules they've set for everyone else." His words struck a chord deep inside Amara. Maybe he was right. Maybe Ms. Whitmore's harsh comments weren't about her talent or lack thereof, but about her refusal to fit into a mold. The thought gave her a tiny spark of hope. That night, Marcus sat with Amara at the kitchen table and helped her search for resources online. They found videos of free vocal lessons taught by professional singers, playlists of famous operas, and interviews with black opera legends who had faced similar challenges. One name stood out: Marian Anderson, the first African American singer to perform at the Metropolitan Opera. Her story inspired Amara. Despite facing racism and rejection, Anderson became one of the greatest voices of all time. "You see," Marcus said, pointing to Anderson's photo on the screen. "People tried to silence her too, but look what happened. She didn't stop singing, and neither should you." From then on, Amara threw herself into learning. Every evening after school, she practiced using the techniques she'd learned online. Marcus became her unofficial coach, listening to her sing and offering feedback. Sometimes, he'd cheer her on when she got frustrated. Other times, he'd remind her to take breaks so she wouldn't strain her voice. Their bond grew stronger during those late-night sessions, and for the first time in weeks, Amara started to feel like herself again. Her parents noticed the change too. One night, while Amara sang softly in her room, her mother peeked in. "Is that you?" she asked, surprised. When Amara nodded shyly, her mother stepped closer. "It's beautiful," she admitted. "I never realized. You're really good." For Amara, hearing those words meant the world. It wasn't just about proving Ms. Whitmore wrong anymore. It was about showing her family, her community, and herself that she belonged in this world of music. With each note she sang, she reclaimed a piece of her dream. But there was still one thing missing: an audience. Practicing in her room was one thing, but performing in front of others terrified her. What if people laughed? What if they agreed with Ms. Whitmore? Marcus saw the fear in her eyes and decided to push her further. "Why don't we record you?" he suggested one day. "We can post it online, not for fame or anything, just to share your voice with the world." At first, Amara hesitated. Sharing her singing felt risky, like opening herself up to judgment. But Marcus reminded her why she started in the first place. "If you want people to hear you," he said, "you've got to put yourself out there." So, with borrowed equipment and trembling hands, Amara recorded her first video. As she pressed play and listened to her own voice fill the room, a wave of pride washed over her. This was her chance to show the world, and Ms. Whitmore, that her voice mattered. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there would listen. A few weeks after recording her first video, Amara's life took an unexpected turn. She hadn't planned on sharing the clip widely, just posting it on a small online forum for aspiring singers, but something incredible happened. Within days, the video started gaining attention. People from all over the world began leaving comments, praising her voice and encouraging her to keep going. Some even compared her to famous opera singers they admired. At first, Amara couldn't believe it. Were these strangers really talking about Asterisk her Asterisk? The same girl who had been laughed at in tour rehearsals and dismissed by Ms. Whitmore? It felt surreal, like stepping into a dream she never thought possible. But the messages kept coming, each one fueling her confidence a little more. One evening, as Amara scrolled through the comments with Marcus by her side, a new message caught her eye. It was from someone claiming to be part of a regional youth opera competition committee. The message read, "Asterisk, dear Amara, we came across your performance online and were deeply moved by your talent. We would love for you to consider auditioning for our upcoming competition. This is a chance to perform alongside some of the brightest young voices in the area. Please let us know if you're interested. Asterisk." Amara stared at the screen, her heart pounding. A real competition? With judges and audiences and actual performers. It sounded amazing, but also terrifying. What if she wasn't good enough? What if this was just a fluke? Marcus saw the doubt creeping back into her expression and leaned over to read the message. "This is huge," he exclaimed, grinning. "You have to do it." "But what if I mess up?" Amara whispered, her voice trembling. "What if they realize I don't belong there?" Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You've worked so hard for this. You've proven yourself to everyone online, and now it's time to prove it to yourself. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? They say no, and you go back to doing what you're already great at." His words helped calm her nerves, but Amara still felt unsure. Competitions required auditions, and auditions meant facing rejection, a fear she hadn't fully overcome yet. Still, Deep down, she knew this might be her only chance to step onto a bigger stage. If she didn't try, she'd always wonder what if. The next morning, with Marcus's encouragement, Amara sent a reply agreeing to audition. The organizers explained the process. Contestants had to submit a short video of themselves performing a classical piece of their choice. The top performers would then advance to the live finals, where they compete in front of a panel of professional musicians. Choosing the right song was harder than Amara expected. She wanted something powerful but not too difficult, something that showcased her range without overwhelming her. After hours of listening to recordings and practicing different pieces, she settled on O mio babino caro, a beautiful aria from Puccini's Gianni Schicchi *. It was emotional, delicate, and perfect for her voice. Recording the audition tape was another challenge. Amara insisted on getting it just right, which meant dozens of takes over several days. Marcus helped set up the borrowed camera and microphone, making sure the sound quality was decent. Every time Amara stumbled or hit a wrong note, she grew frustrated, ready to give up. But Marcus reminded her why she was doing this, not for perfection, but for passion. Finally, on the third day, Amara nailed it. Her voice soared effortlessly, filling the tiny room with emotion. When she finished, both she and Marcus sat in silence, stunned by how good it sounded. For the first time, Amara allowed herself to feel proud of what she'd accomplished. Submitting the video felt like jumping off a cliff. There was no turning back now. All she could do was wait and hope that the judges saw something special in her performance. As the days passed, Amara tried to distract herself with schoolwork and chores, but her mind kept drifting back to the competition. Had they watched her video yet? Did they like it? Or was she just another name on a long list of hopefuls? Then, one afternoon, while walking home from school, Amara's phone buzzed in her pocket. It was an email from the competition committee. Her hands shook as she opened it, bracing herself for disappointment. But instead of bad news, she found these words. Congratulations, Amara. We are thrilled to inform you that you have advanced to the final round of the competition. Amara stopped in her tracks, reading the sentence over and over again. She had done it. Against all odds, she had made it to the finals. Tears filled her eyes as she realized what this meant, not just for her, but for anyone who ever doubted her. For the first time, Amara truly believed she might have a future in opera. And nothing, not even Ms. Whitmore, could stop her now. The night of the competition arrived faster than Amara had expected. One moment, she was practicing in her room, and the next, she found herself standing backstage at a grand concert hall, clutching her sheet music like it was a lifeline. The air buzzed with excitement and nerves. Contestants milled about, adjusting their outfits, warming up their voices, or pacing nervously as they waited for their turn to perform. Amara felt out of place among them. Most of the other finalists came from private music schools or had trained under renowned vocal coaches. They carried themselves with confidence, wearing expensive dresses and polished shoes that gleamed under the stage lights. Amara, on the other hand, wore a simple dress borrowed from her mother, stitched slightly at the hem by her grandmother's careful hands. Her palms were sweaty, and her heart raced so fast it felt like it might burst out of her chest. As she peeked through the curtain, she saw rows of elegant chairs filled with people dressed in formal attire. At the front sat the panel of judges, serious-looking men and women who scribbled notes on clipboards while listening intently to each performance. Amara swallowed hard. How could she possibly stand out in a room full of such talent? What if Ms. Whitmore was right after all? Stop thinking about her, Marcus whispered beside her. He had taken the day off work to support his sister, and his presence gave her strength. You're here because you earned it. Now go show them what you got. When the announcer called her name, Amara froze for a split second. She took a deep breath, smoothed her dress, and stepped onto the stage. Bright spotlights blinded her momentarily, but she forced herself to focus. She scanned the audience quickly, avoiding the judges' piercing gazes, and instead imagined herself back in her bedroom, singing alone where no one could judge her. This was her moment, and she wasn't going to waste it. The pianist began playing the opening chords of O mio babino caro. As the melody filled the hall, Amara closed her eyes and let the music guide her. Forgetting her fear, forgetting everyone watching, she poured every ounce of emotion into her voice. She sang about love and longing, pain and hope, letting the words flow naturally, as though they were written just for her. Her voice soared, filling the vast space with a richness that silenced even the faintest whispers in the audience. Each note seemed to hang in the air, resonating long after she finished. When she reached the final line, her voice dropped to a soft, tender whisper, leaving the entire room breathless. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then, applause erupted, a wave of clapping and cheering that grew louder and louder. People stood to their feet, some wiping away tears, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Even the judges, usually stoic and reserved, exchanged astonished glances before jotting down enthusiastic notes. Backstage, Amara collapsed onto a chair, trembling with relief and exhaustion. Marcus hugged her tightly, grinning from ear to ear. "Did you see them?" he said, barely able to contain his excitement. "They loved you." But Amara couldn't process what had just happened. All she knew was that, for the first time, she felt truly heard. Not judged, not dismissed, but celebrated. And as she looked around at the other contestants, many of whom offered congratulatory smiles, she realized something important. This wasn't just about proving Ms. Whitmore wrong anymore. It was about showing herself, and the world, that her voice mattered. Little did she know, this performance would change more than just her own life. News of her audition spread quickly, reaching places she never imagined. Back at school, rumors swirled about the girl who dared to dream bigger than anyone thought possible. And though Ms. Whitmore tried to dismiss Amara's success as luck, even she couldn't deny the power of what she witnessed. That night, as Amara lay in bed replaying the evening in her mind, she made a silent promise to herself. No matter what challenges lay ahead, she would keep singing. Because now, she understood something profound. Her voice wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who needed to hear it. The results of the competition were announced 2 days later, and Amara could hardly believe what she heard. Her name was called as the winner, echoing through the grand hall like a melody itself. She stood frozen for a moment, unsure if it was real. Then Marcus nudged her gently, whispering, "Go on, sis. This is your moment." With trembling legs, Amara walked back onto the stage to accept her trophy. The applause was thunderous, louder than anything she'd ever experienced. People cheered, whistled, and clapped until their hands turned red. Some even shouted words of encouragement. "Amazing. You deserve this. Bravo." It felt surreal, like stepping into a dream where everything finally made sense. As she held the gleaming trophy in her hands, tears streamed down her face. For so long, she had doubted herself, wondering if her voice would ever be enough. But now, standing under those bright lights with an entire audience celebrating her, she realized how far she'd come. This wasn't just a win. It was proof that her dreams mattered, that her voice belonged in places she once thought impossible. During the awards ceremony, one of the judges approached the microphone to share his thoughts. Amara's performance tonight was unforgettable. He began, his voice filled with admiration. Her emotional depth, technical skill, and sheer passion left us speechless. She reminded us why music exists, to connect, to heal, and to inspire. The crowd erupted into applause again, but Amara barely noticed. Her mind wandered back to all the moments that led her here, the late-night practices, the cruel comments from Ms. Whitmore, the countless times she wanted to give up but didn't. Every struggle, every tear, had brought her to this exact moment. And now, looking out at the sea of smiling faces, she knew it had been worth it. When the ceremony ended, reporters swarmed around her, eager to learn more about the girl who had captured everyone's hearts. They asked questions about her journey, her inspirations, and her plans for the future. At first, Amara struggled to find the right words, overwhelmed by the attention. But then she remembered something Marcus had told her. Asterisk speak from the heart. Asterisk. "I've always loved opera because it makes me feel alive," she said, her voice steady despite the cameras flashing in her face. "But growing up, I never saw anyone who looked like me doing this. So, when people told me I didn't belong, I decided to prove them wrong, not for revenge, but because I believe everyone deserves a chance to follow their dreams. If my story inspires even one person to try something they're afraid of, then all of this will have been worth it." Her words struck a chord with many, especially young artists watching online. Videos of her performance and interviews went viral, spreading across social media platforms and news outlets worldwide. Teachers, parents, and students shared her story, praising her resilience and determination. Even local newspapers ran headlines like, "Small Town Girl Shatters Stereotypes with Stunning Opera Voice." Back at school, the reaction was mixed. Some classmates congratulated her sincerely, while others whispered behind her back, jealous of her sudden fame. Miss Whitmore, however, remained eerily quiet. When Amara passed her in the hallway, the teacher avoided eye contact, her usual stern expression replaced by something unreadable. For the first time, Amara felt pity rather than anger toward her former mentor. She realized that Ms. Whitmore's harshness came not from strength, but from fear, a fear of change, of progress, of voices that refused to stay silent. Despite the lingering whispers, Amara found new allies within the school community. A few teachers reached out to offer support, inviting her to perform at assemblies or school events. One of them, Mr. Patel, the art teacher, became a close friend and advocate, encouraging her to pursue bigger opportunities beyond town limits. He introduced her to contacts in nearby cities who might help further her career. Meanwhile, Amara used her newfound platform to speak about representation in classical music. In interviews and speeches, she highlighted the stories of trailblazers like Marian Anderson and Jessie Norman, women who paved the way for black singers in opera. She emphasized the importance of diversity in the arts, urging institutions to create spaces where everyone felt welcome. Winning the competition didn't just validate Amara's talent, it gave her a purpose. She no longer sang only for herself, she sang for every child told they weren't good enough, every dreamer dismissed as too different. And though challenges still lay ahead, Amara faced them with courage, knowing she'd already proven one thing: her voice couldn't be silenced. Because sometimes the loudest victories are the ones that start with a whisper. Years passed, and Amara's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined. The shy girl who once sang softly in her room grew into a confident young woman whose voice echoed across some of the world's most prestigious stages. After winning the regional competition, doors began opening for her, opportunities that seemed impossible just months before. She earned scholarships to study music at a renowned conservatory, where she'd honed her craft under the guidance of celebrated opera singers and instructors. At first, adjusting to this new chapter wasn't easy. The conservatory was intense, with grueling practice schedules and demanding performances. Many students came from privileged backgrounds, having trained since childhood, while Amara still relied on borrowed sheet music and second-hand gowns. But what she lacked in resources, she made up for in determination. Every early morning spent rehearsing, every late night spent perfecting her technique, brought her closer to her dreams. Her hard work paid off when she landed her first professional role as a lead soprano in a local opera production. Standing center stage, dressed in an elegant costume stitched by her grandmother's hands, Amara felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just her moment. It belonged to everyone who had supported her along the way. Marcus, who believed in her when no one else did. Mr. Patel, who encouraged her to dream bigger. And even Ms. Whitmore, whose harsh words had unknowingly fueled her resolve. As her career took off, Amara became known not only for her breathtaking voice, but also for her commitment to uplifting others. She traveled frequently, performing in cities around the globe, yet she always found time to return home. Her visits weren't just about reconnecting with family, they were about giving back. She started hosting workshops for young artists in her hometown, teaching them techniques she learned and sharing stories of overcoming doubt and rejection. One summer, Amara organized a free concert in the park where she grew up playing as a child. Hundreds of people gathered to hear her sing, many of them neighbors and classmates who had doubted her years ago. As she stood beneath the stars, her voice soaring high above the crowd, she saw tears streaming down familiar faces. Some were moved by the beauty of her performance. Others, perhaps, by the realization of how wrong they'd been to underestimate her. During these visits, Amara often stopped by her old school to speak with current students. She talked openly about her struggles, including the painful encounter with Ms. Whitmore, which had become part of her story. "People will try to tell you who you are," she told them during one assembly. "But don't let their words define you. You get to decide your own worth." Ms. Whitmore, now retired, occasionally attended these talks, sitting quietly in the back of the auditorium. Though she rarely spoke, her presence spoke volumes. Over time, Amara noticed a change in the teacher's demeanor, a softening of her sharp edges, a hint of regret in her eyes. One day, after a particularly moving speech, Ms. Whitmore approached Amara hesitantly. I want to apologize, she said, her voice trembling. I was wrong about you. About everything. Amara smiled gently, meeting the older woman's gaze. Thank you for saying that, she replied. But honestly, without your words, I might not have worked so hard to prove myself, so, in a strange way, I owe you something too. The apology marked a turning point, not just for Ms. Whitmore, but for the entire community. Inspired by Amara's success, the school revamped its arts program, investing in better resources and hiring diverse teachers committed to nurturing talent of all kinds. Posters of famous black opera singers, alongside photos of Amara, adorned the walls of the music room, serving as reminders of what was possible. By the time Amara reached her 30s, she had achieved more than she ever dreamed. Critics hailed her as one of the greatest sopranos of her generation, praising not only her vocal prowess but also her ability to convey raw emotion through song. Yet fame didn't change her. She remained grounded, using her platform to advocate for equality in classical music and mentor aspiring artists from underrepresented communities. Her legacy extended beyond accolades and awards. It lived in the hearts of those she inspired, young singers finding courage to pursue their passions, teachers rethinking outdated beliefs, and audiences discovering the universal power of music. Through it all, Amara proved that resilience isn't just about surviving adversity. It's about thriving despite it and helping others do the same. Because sometimes, the truest victories aren't measured by trophies or titles. They're measured by the lives we touch along the way. And Amara's voice? It touched countless lives, leaving a melody of hope that would resonate for generations to come. Years turned into decades, and Amara's journey became a story told far beyond her small hometown. Her name was etched in history books alongside the legends who inspired her as a child. She performed on stages that once seemed unreachable: La Scala in Milan, the Metropolitan Opera in New York, Covent Garden in London, and earned standing ovations from audiences around the world. But what truly defined her legacy wasn't just her success, it was how she used it to create change. As her career flourished, Amara never forgot where she came from. She often returned to her roots, visiting schools, community centers, and churches to encourage young people to chase their dreams. You don't need permission to be great, she would tell them during these visits. Greatness is already inside you. All you have to do is let it out. Her impact extended far beyond motivational speeches. Determined to break down barriers in classical music, Amara founded an organization called *Voices Unbound*, dedicated to supporting underrepresented artists. Through scholarships, mentorship programs, and free workshops, the initiative helped thousands of aspiring musicians gain access to training and opportunities they otherwise wouldn't have had. Many of its alumni went on to perform professionally, carrying forward Amara's mission to diversify the arts. One of her proudest achievements was opening a state-of-the-art performing arts center in her hometown. Funded partly by donations and partly by her own earnings, the center offered classes in singing, acting, and instrumental music, all free of charge. On its grand opening day, hundreds of families gathered to celebrate, a testament to how much Amara's efforts had transformed the community. Children ran through the halls, eager to explore practice rooms and rehearsal spaces, while parents expressed gratitude for giving their kids a chance to dream big. Back at her old school, things were unrecognizable compared to when Amara was a student. The choir now boasted a diverse group of singers, led by a new drama teacher who championed inclusivity and creativity. Posters of famous black opera singers still lined the walls, joined by photos of students who had gone on to achieve greatness thanks to Amara's influence. Even Ms. Whitmore's retirement marked a shift toward progress. Her replacement was a young, passionate instructor who believed every voice mattered. Amara's personal life mirrored her professional triumphs. She married Marcus, whose unwavering support had been her anchor through tough times. Together, they raised 2 children, filling their home with laughter, love, and, of course, music. Both kids inherited their mother's talent and passion, often joining her on stage during special performances. Watching them sing reminded Amara of herself as a teenager, full of hope and determination, ready to conquer the world. Though retired from performing full-time, Amara remained active in the arts. She served as a guest lecturer at universities, sharing insights about resilience, representation, and the transformative power of music. In interviews, she reflected on her journey, emphasizing that her greatest victories weren't the awards or accolades, but the lives she touched along the way. I used to think my voice belonged only to me, she said during one speech. But over time, I realized it belongs to everyone who needs to hear it, to those who feel invisible, unheard, or dismissed. If my story inspires even one person to believe in themselves, then I've done my job. Her words resonated deeply, especially among young artists facing similar struggles. Countless letters poured in from fans thanking her for showing them that greatness knows no boundaries, not race, class, or circumstance. One letter, written by a teenage girl from a rural town, stood out. Because of you, I know I can sing anywhere, even if people say I shouldn't. By the time Amara reached her 60s, her voice had softened with age, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She spent her days mentoring young singers, writing memoirs chronicling her journey, and advocating for equality in the arts. Her story became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the smallest voices could spark monumental change. And so, Amara's symphony continued, not just in the notes she sang but in the lives she changed. Her melody lingered in the hearts of those she inspired, weaving a tapestry of courage, resilience, and unity. Because sometimes the most powerful songs aren't sung, they're lived. And Amara's life was a masterpiece worth remembering forever.